Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome you all in our today's session. Today we are going to talk about implementation of strategies, and we'll be concerned with the strategies related with management issues, operations, marketing, finance and accounting, research and development, and MIS issues. And this would be covering our scope of chapter number 7 and chapter number 8 of our textbook, Strategic Management by Frida David. Let's go through the chapter 7 objectives. The chapter 7 is going to talk about, number 1, explain why strategy implementation is more difficult than strategy formulation. Number 2, discuss the importance of annual objectives and policies in achieving organizational commitment for strategies to be implemented. Number 3, explain why organizational structure is so important in strategy implementation. Number 4, compare and contrast restructuring and re-engineering. Then we will be talking about describe the relationships between production, operations, and strategy implementation. Our sixth concern would be explain how a firm can effectively link performance and pay to strategies. And our seventh concern would be describe how to modify an organizational culture to support new strategies. Afterwards, we'll be talking about the chapter 8, and related to chapter 8, our objectives would be, number 1, explain market segmentation and product positioning as strategy implementation tools. Number 2, discuss procedures for determining the worth of a business. Number 3, explain why projected financial statement analysis is a central strategy form implementation tool. And number 4, explain how to evaluate the attractiveness of debt versus stock as a source of capital to implement strategies. Then we'll be talking about discussing the nature and role of research and development in strategy implementation. Our sixth concern in chapter 8 would be explain how management information systems can be determined and how their success of strategy implementation would be evaluated. And our seventh concern would be explain business analytics and data mining. Looking at the comprehensive strategic management model, in this session, we'll be covering the scope of strategy implementation, and strategy implementation would be concerned with implementing strategies related to management issues, which is major concern in chapter 7, and then marketing, finance, and accounting issues, which are major concerns in chapter number 8. So these two chapters are going to cover the scope of strategy implementation. After that, we'll be moving towards the strategy evaluation, which would evaluate the performance of the firm. And once the performance would be evaluated, from there, the feedback would go back and would either ask us to go for re-engineering, re-energizing, or restructuring our organization if there are any gaps or if the things are getting better. So either case, the feedback would be giving us the clue that we have done the right things or there are things which we need to improve upon. Afterwards, the chapter 10 would be talking about business ethics, social responsibility, environmental sustainability issues. And last chapter, but not the least, would be concerned with global and international issues. Now, first of all, we're going to focus upon the difference between strategy formulation and strategy implementation. The strategy formulation is positioning forces before the action. Like tangibly, we don't have any results we are not available with the performance outcomes, and we are in the planning stage. So strategy formulation is positioning forces before the action, whereas implementation would be asking for managing forces during the action, when the execution of the strategy would be there, when tangibly we'll be encountering with the issues and problems, conditions and constraints, and we'll be facing actually the risks and the uncertainties. So that would be the time when we have to manage the forces during the action. Likewise, strategy formulation focuses on effectiveness, which is basically related with doing the right things. And strategy implementation would be focusing upon efficiency, which is more related with doing the things right. Another expression can be that strategy formulation is primarily an intellectual process. That is a mind game. That is planning for your future course of action. Whereas implementation is primarily an operational process where physical execution of things would be done. Another difference can be that strategy formulation requires good intuitive and analytical skills, whereas strategy implementation requires special motivation and leadership skills, because that would be the time when people would be encountering with change, when people would be resisting, and that is the time when the people would be needing motivation and the right leadership, authentic leadership, which is there to drive their forces towards constructive outcomes, and which is there to improve the performance and to create the environment in which sustainability can be ensured, where sustainable competitive advantage can be achieved. So strategy implementation would require special motivation and leadership skills. Now, there are some management issues central to strategy implementation, and we'll be talking about these issues in detail in the next coming slides. So the highlight of those management issues which are central to strategy for implementation are including: number one, establish annual objectives, devise policies, allocate resources, alter an existing organizational structure, restructure and re-engineering option, revise reward and incentive plans, minimize resistance to change, match managers with strategy, develop a strategy supportive culture, adapt production operations processes, develop an effective human resource function, downsize and furlough as needed, and link performance and pay to strategies. So these would be the issues we'll be talking about in next coming slides. First of all, we're going to start from annual objectives. The annual objectives would represent the basis for allocating resources. Number two, are a primary mechanism for evaluating managers, because that would be giving them the targets, that would be giving them the key result areas, and then obviously according to the key result areas, they would be able to develop their key performance areas and then key performance indicators, which are going to be smart and which are going to determine that what are the targets for every individual in the next coming financial year. So annual objectives are a primary mechanism for evaluating managers. Annual objectives are the major instrument for monitoring progress towards achieving long-term objectives. And annual objectives would establish organizational, divisional, and departmental priorities as well. And people would be clear and cautious that what are the targets that they have to achieve in every financial year. And always remember that when we'll be talking about annual objectives, we'll be concerned with strategic objectives, financial objectives, and then trickling down these two objectives, we'll be obviously talking about operational objectives as well. So let's look at the company's hierarchy of aims, that how those objectives are developed at the corporate level, then at business level, and then at functional level. For example, when we look at long-term company objectives, we may say that the objective of a given company is to double company revenues in 2 years through market development and market penetration. So they have also mentioned the strategy with which the objectives are going to be achieved. And once the objectives and strategies at the corporate level are defined, they are to be transferred to the divisional level. And the first divisional level objective would be at the division 1, increase divisional revenue by 40% this year and 40% next year. And they are also elaborating that current revenues are 1 million. The division 2 is thinking in their terms, and the division 2 annual objectives would be increase divisional revenue by 40% this year and 40% next year. And the current revenue they are expecting and they are calculating are 0.5 million. And the division 3 annual objective would be increase divisional revenue by 50% this year and 50% next year. And the current revenues are 0.5 million again. And combining these three would be giving them the cumulative result of the long-term company objectives, which we have discussed earlier. Now the division 1 annual objectives are further translated into their production annual objective, marketing annual objective, finance annual objectives, and personal annual objectives. And when we talk about production annual objectives, they are concerned with increasing the production efficiency by 30% this year. And for that, the further translation would be purchasing, shipping, quality control. When we talk about marketing annual objectives, it would be increase the number of sales people by 40 this year. And that would be further translated into advertising, promotion, research, and public relation aspects. When we are talking about finance annual objectives, that would mean obtain long-term financing of 400,000 in the next 6 months. And that would obviously be subjected to auditing, accounting, investments, collections, and working capital discussions. And likewise, the personal annual objective would be reduce employee absenteeism from 10% to 5% this year. So this is how functional level objectives would be translated. Looking at the divisional level objective, and the divisional level objective is obviously developed through the long-term company objectives. So remember that this is how the corporate level objectives and strategies are linked with divisional level objectives, and the divisional level objectives will be eventually linked with the functional level objectives. Now, looking at the policies, a policy is specific guideline. It can be a method, procedures, rules, forms, and administrative practices established to support and encourage work toward stated goals. And policy is instrumental in strategy implementation. We can also say that policies are the guidelines for making decisions. The policies set boundaries, constraints, and limits on the kinds of administrative actions that can be taken to reward and sanction behavior. And another expression about policies can be that it clarify what can and cannot be done in pursuit of an organization's objectives. So policies also can define the do's and don'ts for the organizational setup. If we talk about hierarchy of policies, just like the hierarchy of objectives we have discussed previously, a hierarchy of policies would start from the company level strategy and policy discussion. As we are looking at the slide, the company level strategy is acquire a chain of retail stores to meet our sales growth and profitability objectives. And related to this strategy, the policy they have crafted is number 1, all stores will open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And we can look at the expression of the sentence as well, that this is a policy statement which is guiding our day-to-day procedures and rules and regulations and decisions. And this policy could increase retail sales if stores currently are open only 40 hours a week. So the explanation can also be given in the policy statements that what that policy is going to do. Looking at the second supporting policy related to company strategy is that all stores must submit a monthly control data report. And the elaboration of that expression is that this policy could reduce expense to sales ratios. Looking at the third company level policy, all stores must support company advertising by contributing 5% of their total monthly revenues for this purpose. And this policy could allow the company to establish a national reputation. And likewise, the fourth policy in relation with the company strategy can be that all stores must adhere to uniform pricing guidelines set forth in company handbook. And the elaboration of this policy is that this policy could help assure customers that the company offers a consistent product in terms of price and quality in all of its stores. Now, looking at the strategy once again, that acquire a chain of retail stores to meet our goals related to sales growth and profitability concerns. The policies we have just discussed are the ways which are going to facilitate our implementation and the achievement of our objectives. Now, looking at the company level policy and strategy, the divisions are going to devise their own policies and strategies. Like the divisional objective can be increase the division's revenue from 10 million in 2012 to 15 million in 2013. So yearly, we can develop the scope of the divisional level objectives. And our supporting policies related to the divisional level objectives would be that beginning in January 2012, each one of this division's salesperson must file a weekly activity report that includes the number of calls made, the number of miles traveled, the number of units sold, and the dollar volume sold, and the number of new accounts opened. So as we can look at the expression of the sentence, it is giving instructions, it is devising the boundaries, it is developing do's and don'ts, it is developing the concern in which we can talk about the conditions and constraints, and we can also come up with the operating procedures that how these things are going to be materialized. Now, the divisional level objectives and policies will be further translated into departmental level policies and objectives. As the production department objectives would be talking about increasing production from 20,000 units in 2012 to 30,000 units in 2013. And the supporting policy for that would be beginning in January 2012, employees will have the option of working up to 20 hours of overtime per week. So this policy could minimize the need to hire additional employees. So that's how the policies are operational in the technical and practical sense. Now, some issues that may require a management policy are highlighted in this particular table. And the issues are, number one, to offer extensive and limited management development workshops and seminars, to centralize or decentralize employee training activities, to recruit through employment agencies, college campus, and or newspapers, to promote from within or to hire from the outside. So many concerns are there. They can be related with the HR, they can be related with the marketing, finance, production, anything can be highlighted. Another issue which is like discussed in the slide related to management overall policy situation is to promote from within or to hire from the outside. The policy related to internal recruitment and external recruitment can be developed. To promote on the basis of merit and on the basis of seniority. To tie executive compensation to long-term and or annual objectives, and that can also be elaborated in terms of the corporate governance issues. And to offer numerous or few employee benefits, to negotiate directly or indirectly with labor unions, to delegate authority for large expenditures or to centrally retain their authority, like the issues of empowerment can be elaborated. To allow much, some or no overtime work, to establish high or low safety stock of inventory, that we have to go for implementing the EOQ models, economic order quantity concerns, to use one or more suppliers, to buy, lease or rent new production equipment, to greatly or somewhat stress quality control, to establish many or only a few production standards, to operate 1, 2 or 3 shifts, to discourage using insider information for personal gain, to discourage sexual harassment, to discourage smoking at work, to discourage insider trading, to discourage moonlighting. So there can be so many concerns for which the policies are required. And again, they're going to be the guidelines for making our day-to-day decisions. The second concern we are looking at related to the management issues is about resource allocation. As we all know that resource allocation is central management activity that allows for strategy execution, and resource allocation often based on political and personal factors as well, because obviously decisions are to be taken, and in those decisions the personal biases and the politics can always play their role. So the strategic management enables resources to be allocated according to priorities established by the annual objectives. And we need to be very much clear and cautious that one thing leads to another and things are correlated with one another. And we should be very much clear that how the things are associated and how the impact of one decision is going to affect the rest of the factors. So the resources can be in terms of financial aspects, physical aspects, human aspects, technological aspects, all the tangible and intangible resource list, which we have already discussed in the internal audit part. So all the resources needed to be sorted out and all the resources needed to be allocated as per the strategy requirements are. And when you are implementing all these things, there will be many conflicts arising. So you have to manage the conflicts as well. So the conflict basically is disagreement between two or more parties on one or more issues, and conflicts can always arise in any situation. And we have to see that the conflict itself is not usually wrong. The mismanagement of conflict is wrong. So that is the reason that we are highlighting the issues of conflict as well. And conflicts always come up with, can always come up with constructive contributions if they are managed properly and accordingly. And we should be avoiding the dysfunctional conflicts. So conflict is basically establishing annual objectives, can lead to conflict. And these can lead to conflict because individuals have different expectations and perceptions. Schedules create pressure. Personalities are incompatible. And misunderstandings occur between line managers and staff managers. So we should always be ready for these things. And we should be devising the ways to manage the conflict. The first method can be avoidance, which includes such actions as ignoring the problem in hopes that the conflict will resolve itself, or physically separating the conflicting individuals. Another step which can be taken is diffusion, which means it includes playing down differences between conflicting parties while accentuating similarities, promoting similarities, highlighting similarities and common interests. It can be even in form of confrontation, that exemplified by exchanging members of conflicting parties so that each one can gain an appreciation of the other's point of view, or holding a meeting at which conflicting parties present their views and work through their differences. Now, some management trade-off decisions required in strategy implementation are to be discussed. And that would include, number one, to emphasize short-term profits or long-term growth. Now that is our, conflicting priority, and different people would be having different perceptions and different schools of thought and different viewpoints. So we should be there to appreciate and respect each other's viewpoint. Another management trade-off can be related to emphasize profit margin or market growth. Another trade-off can be in between to emphasize market development or market penetration. Another issue arising out of our concerns can be to go for layoff or furlough to seek growth or stability. There can be a trade-off in between take high risk or low risk, a trade-off to be more socially responsible or more profitable, a trade-off to to outsource jobs or pay more to keep jobs at home. A trade-off can be related to acquire externally or build internally issues. A trade-off can be talking about restructure or re-engineering options. A trade-off can be in between use leverage or equity to raise funds. There can be another issue which is talking about the part-time or full-time employees. So there can be so many concerns in which the conflicts, in which the trade-offs are present, and we have to be very vigilant in our concerns and decisions, and we should be deciding upon in the light of policies and our priorities and concerns. Now, when we talk about matching structure with strategy, we have already discussed this issue in the internal audit, that we have to be clear that when to go for developing mechanistic environment and when to design our organic structures. And when we talk about structures, obviously we mean three basic things: physical outlook, department, and hierarchy. And we should also be concerned with the concerns related to departmentalization. It can be product departmentalization, it can be process departmentalization, it can be geographic departmentalization, it can be customer departmentalization, functional departmentalization. So the structural details are very important in our concerns related to strategy implementation. So structure largely dictates how objectives and policies will be established, and structure dictates how resources will be allocated. And there are certain symptoms of an ineffective organizational structure. For example, too many levels of management are developed, like there is a tall structure, rather we have to go for a flat structure. Too many meetings attended by too many people, like proper chain of command, span of control, lines of authority, centralization, formalization concerns are not developed. So too many meetings are attended by too many people, which are not productive. So too much attention being directed toward solving interdepartmental conflicts, or there can be issues related to too large a span of control, too many unachieved objectives, declining corporate or business performance, losing ground to rival firms, revenues and or earnings divided by number of employees and or number of managers in low compared to rival firms. So these are the issues which are directly related to the structural details, the physical outlook, departments, and a hierarchy. And the 7 concerns we have related to the hierarchy development, which are, again, I repeat for your revision: chain of command, span of control, lines of authority, centralization, formalization, flow of communication, departmentalization. So these are all the concerns we should be focusing upon. There should not be any weaknesses in our designing of the structural details. We should be concerned that what departmentalization factors we are going to incorporate in our organization. Either we're going to design functional departmentalization, or we are going to design, or we are supposed to design product departmentalization, or rather we should go for geographic or territorial departmentalization. So we should be clear that what are the pros and cons of each type of departmentalization, as we have already discussed in the internal audit part. So if we have to go for restructuring, the restructuring would be concerned with involving or reducing the size of the firm in terms of number of employees, number of divisions or units, and number of hierarchical levels in the firm's organizational structure. And that can be also done through downsizing, right sizing, or delayering. Whereas when we talk about re-engineering, the re-engineering would involve reconfiguring or redesigning work or jobs and processes for the purpose of improving cost, quality, service, and speed. So these are the pure concerns which are related with the term re-engineering. And the re-engineering would also be related to process management, process innovation, process redesign, in which the systems are going to be improved, the systems are going to be developed. Now, once the strategy is implemented, once the execution of things are there, when the operational concerns are arising, the people would be resisting to change. So how to manage the resistance to change? There are certain aspects. First of all, we are looking at the forced change strategy. The forced change strategy would involve giving orders and enforcing those orders. Another can be educating change strategy, which is one that presents information to convince people of the need for change. Another issue can be self-interest change strategy, in which one that attempts to convince individuals that the change is to their personal advantage. So creating a strategy supportive culture, we're going to talk about now creating a strategy supportive culture. And in strategy supportive culture, the first aspect of discussion can be that formal statements of organizational philosophy, charters, creeds, materials used for recruitment and selection and socialization all should be developed and shared accordingly. Designing of physical spaces, facades and buildings, deliberate role modeling, teaching and coaching by leaders should be done. Explicit reward and status system, promotion criteria, all these things should be clear and well communicated. Stories, legends, myths, and parables about key people and events should be developed, audited, shared, and improved. The sixth aspect related to strategy supportive culture is talking about what leaders pay attention to, measure and control, what leaders' reactions to critical incidents are an organizational crisis, how the organization is designed and structured, how organizational systems and procedures are developed, the criteria used for recruitment, selection, promotion, leveling off, retirement, and excommunication of people. All these issues are to be developed, resolved, communicated. And as we know that the culture overall is a mixture of the human and the structure. So all the aspects of the structural detail and the human detail are to be audited, and an environment needs to be developed in which the strategy is facilitated and strategy execution is carried on without much resistance. Proper compensation should be given. The rewards should be allocated to the people who are facilitating the implementation of the strategy and who are supporting the overall culture of the organization. Now, ways and means for altering an organization's culture are: number one, new recruitments; number two, training of current employees; number three, transfer of existing personals; promotion; restructuring, re-engineering, role modeling; positive reinforcement, mentoring; revising vision and or mission statements; redesigning physical spaces; altering reward systems; altering organizational policies, procedures, and practices. These are all the ways with which we can develop and alter the organization's culture. Always remember that people would always appreciate the change. People love the change, but they don't love the process of change. So we have to facilitate the process of change. And people would love that change in which they would find something for themselves. The change which jingles in their pocket is the change which is going to be implemented. Because everyone in the organization would always have a question that what's in it for them. And unless and until they are unable to see that what's in it for them, they would always be resisting to that particular discussion. Now, talking about the production management and strategy implementation concerns, I have presented different examples related to hospitals, banks, brewery, steel manufacturer, and computer company. For example, when we talk about hospitals, The strategy being implemented is adding a cancer center, which is basically product development concern. And the production system adjustments according to this strategy would be purchase specialized equipment and add specialized people. So that is the implementation concern in relation with the product development strategy of an hospital. When we are looking at the bank, suppose the strategy being implemented is adding 10 new branches, which is related to the market development. And for that, the execution aspect would be related to performing site location analysis. When we talk about some brewery plant, the purchasing of barley foam, which is related to the backward integration, is the discussion we have related to the strategy. And the production system adjustments would require revise the inventory control system. When we are looking at the example of steel manufacturer, the strategy under discussion is related with unrelated diversification or formation of a conglomerate, which is talking about acquiring a fast food chain. A steel manufacturer is going to acquire a fast food chain. Now this is formation of conglomerate. And the production system adjustment can be improve the quality control system and the mechanism. Looking at the computer company example, like purchasing a retail distribution chain, which is forward integration discussion, and the production system adjustment in terms of strategy implementation would be altering the shipping, packaging, and transportation systems. So this is how the implementation is in association with the strategy based upon the type of organization we are talking about. At the same time, labor cost saving tactics is something we should be looking at, because during the implementation, the labor cost is one of the major aspects which are brought under discussion. So the labor cost saving tactics might include salary freeze, hiring freeze, salary reduction, reduce employee benefits, raise employee contribution to healthcare premiums, different social security and retirement policies, reduce employee work week, mandatory furlough, voluntary furlough, hire temporary instead of full-time employees, hire contract employees instead of full-time employees, volunteer buyouts, halt production for 3 days a week, which the Toyota Motors is doing these days, layoffs, early retirement, reducing, eliminating bonuses. So there can be so many tactics which are there to reduce the overall labor costs. At the same time, the people who are working for us, we should be concerned for their health, because a healthy person would be the right person to give us higher levels of outcomes. And the healthy person is the person who can bring in efficiency and effectiveness. So the key to staying healthy, living to 100 and being a well employee, the organizations need to talk about the well-being of the workforce. And when we are concerned with the well-being of the workforce during strategy executions, these are the 7 important parameters we need to look at. And these are very important, in fact. Number 1 is that we should be emphasizing on eating nutritiously, which means eat a variety of fruits and vegetables daily, because they have ingredients that the body uses to repair and strengthen itself. And why the organization is concerned with the nutritious food, because if the workers and the employees working for the organization are not healthy and are not feeling good about themselves, they would not be there to work constructively. Likewise, stay hydrated, drink plenty of water to aid the body in eliminating toxins and to enable body organs to function efficiently. The body is mostly water. We should be knowing that, and we should be emphasizing that in the organizational facility, the people should be properly hydrated, get plenty of rest. The rest hours we define in the organizational working hours are very important. And obviously, these concerns are also linked with work-life balance issues. And as you know, that work-life balance is one of the highlighted issues we have these days around the globe. So get plenty of rest. The body repairs itself during rest. So get at least 7 hours of sleep nightly, preferably 8 hours. And obviously, these are the things which should be communicated with the employees for their own well-being, for the well-being of the society at large, for the well-being of their families, for the well-being of the organization as well in return. And we should be counseling our employees for their psychological and physiological issues. And we should be highlighting to individuals when and what treatments they need to go for. And we are putting all this effort, obviously, to maximize the shareholders' wealth, to improve the organizational performance, to have concerns related to the company's social responsibility. And obviously, that would increase the goodwill of the firm among its internal customers as well as external customers. So the fourth concern in the same regard is get plenty of exercise. Even the organizations are having their own gyms at the organizational facility, and exercise vigorously at least 30 minutes daily so the body can release toxins and strengthen vital organs. Another concern can be reduced stress. The body's immune system is weakened when one is under stress, making the body vulnerable to many ailments. So keep stress to a minimum. So organizational stress, job burnout, job anxieties, these are all the things which the employer should be taking care of related to the employees. And obviously, there can be policies related to smoking, that do not smoke. Smoking kills, no doubt about it anymore. And take vitamin supplements, consult your physicians. But because it is difficult for diet alone to support all the nutrients and vitamins needed, so supplements can be helpful in achieving good health and longevity. So remember, these are all the employee-employer concerns. These are concerns related with work-life balance. These are concerns related with employees' well-being. Now, looking at the marketing issues, we're going to start the 8th chapter discussion. Now, looking at the marketing issues, the first concern can be during the strategy implementation, how to make advertisements more interactive to be more effective. And obviously, when we'll be talking about the advertisement design, we are concerned with AIDA, which is an abbreviation for attention, interest, desire, and action. So how to make advertisements more interactive to be more effective, how to best take advantage of Facebook and Twitter conversations about the company and industry, the social media involvement. Related to the marketing issues, how to use exclusive dealerships or multiple channels of distribution, how to use heavy light or no TV advertising versus online advertisement. These are all the concerns which we should be focusing upon. There are some other issues like to limit or not the share of business done with a single customer, to be a price leader or a price follower, to offer a complete or limited warranty, to reward salespeople based on straight salary, straight commission, or a combination of salary and commission. These are all the concerns we should be focusing upon when we talk about implementation of strategy related to the marketing. So the firm should provide incentives to consumers to share their thoughts, opinions, and experiences on the company website And the company website must not be all about the company alone. It must be all about the customer too. Now, the new principles of marketing would include, number one, don't just talk at consumers, work with them through the marketing processes. As you know, that we talked about a concept of value co-creation. So the value co-creation is directly linking with the customer feedbacks, the customer inputs. Number two, give consumers a reason to participate. Number three, listen to and join the conversation outside your company's website. Number four, resist the temptation to sell, sell, and sell. Instead, attract, attract, and attract. That should be the policy rather. That should be the major concern, that we should be attracting our customers rather enforcing our product on them. So rather than having supply push concerns, there should be demand pull aspects. The fifth concern can be, don't control online conversations, let it flow freely. Find a marketing technologist, a person who has 3 excellent skill sets related to marketing, technology, and social interaction. So neuromarketing concerns can be brought in. Embrace instant messaging and chatting. That would be the most informal way to gather the concerns of the consumers and customers. Now, when we are advertising our products and services, the advertising media needs to be focused upon. For example, internet advertising is growing so rapidly that marketers are more and more allowed to create bigger, more intrusive ads that take up more space on the web page. Websites are allowing lengthier ads to run before short video clips play, and blogs are creating more content that doubles also as an ad. So these are the concerns we should be cautious about. Another issue is purpose-based marketing. The best way to sell in a weak economy is to show customers how they can improve their lives with your product or services. So purpose-based marketing is the word of today. The purpose-based marketing needs to build trust and an emotional connection to the customer in order to differentiate your products or services. Now, looking at the market segmentation, we talked about segmentation in detail during our internal audit part, but in implementation, again, the market segmentation needs to be highlighted. So the market segmentation, subdividing of a market into distinct subsets of customers according to the needs and the buying habits, and the market segmentation widely used in implementing strategies. We are concerned with basically the whole concept of STP again, the segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So the segmentation aspect, strategies such as market development, product development, market penetration, and diversification require increased sales through new markets and products. And that is one of the reasons that we need to properly segment the market initially. Market segmentation allows a firm to operate with limited resources because mass production, mass distribution, and mass advertising are not required. And you will be directly able to approach to your target customers once the proper segmentation is being developed. So market segmentation decisions directly affect marketing mix variables related to the product decisions, place decisions, promotion factors, and the pricing of the products and services. And obviously, these marketing mix variables we are looking at are related to the manufacturing concerns. And when we are talking about service concerns, so 3 more P's, as you know, are to be added, which are talking about the people, the physical evidence, and the processes. So all these P's, either the 4P model or the 7P's model, they are in association with the market segmentation, because we have to develop the product mix, the service mix, based upon that what segments of the market we're going to serve. When we are looking at retention-based segmentation, the tag 1 can be, is this customer at high risk of canceling the company's services? The tag 2 strategic option can be, is this customer worth retaining? And the tag 3 retention-based segmentations, developed strategic options, developed tactics to be more to remain more competitive in the market and to ensure your sustainability. Now, alternative bases for market segmentation are given below. Supposedly, in terms of geographic segmentation, we are concerned with region, country size, city size, density, and climate. In terms of demographic concerns, we can talk about age, gender, family size, family life cycle, income, occupation, education, religion, race, and nationality. In terms of psychographic aspects, we can talk about social class, personality. And in behavioral issues, we are focusing upon occasion, benefit sought, user status, usage rate, loyalty status, readiness stage, attitude towards product, attitude towards services. These are the behavioral concerns. Now, let me tell you how to develop the segments out of this whole data. Remember that we have to first of all make segment groups. For example, in all of these 4 concerns of segmentation, geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral, out of these 4 concerns, we have to pick certain parts to make our first group of segmentation. For example, in our first segmentation group, we can say that in geographic, from the region part, I'm picking Pacific. From the country size, it is A. For the city size, it is under 5,000. For the density, it is urban. For the climate, it is suppose northern. For the age, it is between 6 to 11. For the gender, it might be male or female. For the family size, it can be 1, 2, 3, 4. For the family life cycle, it can be young, single, married, or whatsoever, based upon the age distribution. For the income, it can be any of these income ranges. So that would comprise the segment group 1, in which I have taken certain parts of geographic, certain parts of demographic, psychographic, and behavioral concerns. For example, in case of psychographic, it can be social class belonging to the lower class, upper class. From the behavioral, it can be the quality conscious people, the non-users, the unaware people who are at the unaware stage of readiness. So the second segment group can be from the West, North, Central. Now the West, North, Central would be taken up related to the country size C. It can be the city size, say 50,000. It can be the density related to the suburban. So again, I'm going to pick certain aspects from the geographic, from the demographic, from the psychographic, from the behavioral, and I would make the segment 2. Then segment 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and all the segments of the total market can be developed. Once all the segments are developed, I have got segment groups with me. I can comfortably now look at my priorities, that which among all these groups are basically my target groups. Okay, so once I would be able to identify my target groups from all the list, all the groups I have developed in the segmentation part, once those target groups are identified, then I'll be in a better position to plan for my positioning strategies. And once the positioning would be done, I will be in a better position to craft my marketing mix related to the product, the price, the place, the promotion, the physical evidence, the processes, and the people. So that's how the segmentation, targeting, and positioning would be technically dealt with. Now, does the internet make market segmentation easier? looking at the first point, the segments of people whom marketers want to reach online are much more precisely defined than the segments of people reached through traditional forms of media, such as television, radio, and magazines. And the people, in essence, segment themselves by nature of the websites that comprise their favorite places, and many of these websites sell information regarding their visitors. Now, once the segmentation and targeting is discussed, then we are obviously focusing upon the product positioning, and we are in the stage of implementation now. So entails developing schematic representations that reflect how your products or services compare to competitors on dimensions most important to success in the industry. Now, there are certain product positioning steps we need to focus upon. The first product positioning step is select key criteria that effectively differentiate products or services in the industry. So we have to develop the points of parities and the points of differences. The second is diagram a two-dimensional product positioning map with specified criteria on each axis, which is like developing the perceptual mapping as well, as we have discussed about the perceptual maps in our initial concerns. And I gave you the example of perceptual maps in relation with strategic group mapping. So the third concern would be plot major competitors' products or services in the resultant 4-quadrant matrix. The fourth factor related to the product positioning steps would be identify areas in the positioning map where the company's products or services could be most competitive in the given target market, and look for the vacant areas and the targets which are like not yet hit by the competitors, and developing a marketing plan to position the company's products or services appropriately. When you're designing the product positioning matrices, there are certain rules for using product positioning as a strategy implementation tool. The first rule can be look for the hole or the vacant niche. Second, don't serve two segments with the same strategy. And the third can be don't position yourself in the middle of the map, which is also related with the strategic option known as stuck in the middle. Now, the product positioning is an effective product positioning strategy meets two criteria. The first is it uniquely distinguishes a company from the competition. And number two, it leads customers to expect slightly less service than a company can deliver. And these are few of the examples related to the product positioning maps or the perceptual maps. So the product positioning of the banks can be seen in the first place, which is developed on the two axis values, the personal and impersonal, aggressive and conservative aspects. Then we can talk about the personal computers market. There would be the bad customers and the good customers and the high capability and the low capability concerns. Then we can look at the menswear retail stores, which are having the association in between the high price and the low price versus very latest fashionable wear and the conservative everyday menswear. And then we can also look at the rental car market. So different firms can be categorized in this product positioning maps. Now coming towards the finance and accounting issues, the first concern is to raise capital with short-term debt, long-term debt, preferred stock or common stock. That is the first concern when we talk about implementation. The second can be to lease or buy fixed assets. The third issue can be to determine an appropriate dividend payout ratio. The fourth concern can be to use last in, first out, or first in, first out, or a market value accounting approach. So it's all depending on your policies and the way you're going to develop your finance and accounting concerns. The fifth aspect can be to extend the time of accounts receivable. The sixth concern can be to establish a certain percentage discount on accounts within a specified period of time. The seventh concern can be to determine the amount of cash that should be kept on hand, and so many other aspects. Obviously, we can be talking about related to the finance and accounting issues. So when talking about acquiring capital to implement strategies, remember that successful strategy implementation often requires additional capital. And besides net profit from operations and the sales of assets, two basic sources of capital for an organization are debt and equity. And we have to see that in which way we're going to generate our capital. For that concern, we may need to go for developing projected financial statements. So those projected financial statements would allow an organization to examine the expected results of various actions and approaches. And those projected financial statements would allow an organization to compute projected financial ratios under various strategy implementation scenarios. We can also be concerned with financial budgets. A financial budget is a document that details how funds will be obtained and spent for a specific period of time. And the financial budgets would also be related with including cash budgets, operating budgets, sales budgets, profit budgets, factory budgets, capital budgets, expense budgets, divisional budgets, various other types of budgets, which may include flexible budgets and budget and the fixed budgets. Evaluating the worth of a business can be another concern related to the finance, and there three approaches can be studied. For example, what a firm owns, what a firm earns, what a firm will bring in the market. These are all the things which are going to develop the worth or the goodwill of the firm, goodwill of the business. So when evaluating the worth of a business, remember the first approach is determining a firm's net worth or stockholders' equity. And the second concern can be related to the basis on the future benefits a firm's owners may drive through the net profits. And the third approach we have to evaluate the worth of a business can be to divide the market price of the firm's common stock by annual earnings per share and multiply this number by the firm's average net income for the past 5 years. And obviously, we are talking about the organizations which are developed formally, which are corporate, like sector companies, organizations, which have got a long history, and also called the price earnings ratio method. So that can also be named in this third approach. So we have to go for knowing the worth of a business as well once we are implementing our strategy. The fourth method to calculate the worth of a business is to simply multiply the number of shares outstanding by the market price per share, and that is also known as the outstanding shares method. So that is the fourth style with which we can calculate the worth of the business. Now, moving towards the issues related with research and development. The first issue is emphasize product or process improvements. The second issue is to stress basic or applied research. The third issue can be leaders or followers in research and development. The fourth issue can be develop robotics or manual type processes. The fifth issue can be spend a high average or low amount of money on research and development. The sixth concern we have is to perform research and development within the firm or contract R&D to outside firms. And the seventh major concern can be use university researchers or private sector researchers to facilitate our own research and development issues. And the research and development would not only just improve the product and services, can also be there to improve the processes. The process innovation is one of the concerns of R&D. The product innovation is another concern for the R&D. So reverse engineering can also be linked with this research and development concerns. We can also come up with like developing automations. So there are so many ways in which the research and development is going to enhance the performance of the organization, is going to give us the plans, is going to craft the roadmaps for our development. So R&D approaches for implementing strategies would include, number one, be the first firm to market new technological products. Two, be an innovative imitator of successful products, thus minimizing the risks and costs of startup. Three, be a low-cost producer by mass producing products similar to but less expensive than products recently introduced. Now, looking at, again, different types of organizations, strategy being implemented and R&D activity associated with strategy. For example, in this table, the type of organization is pharmaceutical. The strategy being implemented is product development, and the R&D activity in association with that is test the effects of new drug on different subgroups. Another example is boat manufacturer. The strategy being implemented is related diversification, and the R&D activity associated with related diversification would be test the performance of various ale designs under various conditions. Another example can be the type of organization. In this example is plastic container manufacturer, and the strategy being implemented is market penetration. And related to market penetration, the R&D activity needed is develop a biodegradable container, which is also environment friendly, which is focusing upon the green aspects of the business. The type of organization in the next example is related to the electronics company, and the strategy being implemented is market development. And the R&D activity associated with market development can be develop a telecommunication system in a foreign country. So that is how R&D activities are in association with strategy being implemented. Now moving towards the last part of our chapter, management information system issues can also be discussed and highlighted. For example, in the first concern, having an effective management information system may be the most important factor in differentiating successful from unsuccessful firms, because the connectivity, the intranets working in an organization are the basis to provide the data, are the basis to share the information. So the process of strategic management is facilitated immensely in firms that have an effective information system. Talking about business analytics would include a management information system technique that involves using software to mine huge volumes of data to help executives make decisions, and also called predictive analytics, machine learning, or data mining. So these are all the concerns of today's world, and businesses are having different types of data analysis techniques. Different systems and softwares are developed accordingly, which help the organizations to crunch all the data available to them. A key distinguishing feature of business analytics is that it is predictive rather than retrospective, in that it enables a firm to learn from experience and make current and future decisions based on prior information. And intelligent systems are incorporated to facilitate all these discussions. The systems which are powerful enough to forecast the future for you based upon the historical data, the trend lines we have. So that basically concludes our discussion related to the chapter number 7 and chapter number 8, which were talking about the strategy implementation. And once the implementation would be done in the best possible manner, then we'll be moving towards the discussions related to the evaluation, that we'll be looking at how well we have implemented our strategy, how well our targets, goals, and objectives are being met, and what course of action the organization needs to follow in the next phase, in the next financial year. And we'll be talking about, in our next chapters, issues related with evaluation. And we'll be talking about the controlling parameters, the feedback control, the feed forward controls, the concurrent control aspects. So that concludes our today's discussion. Thank you very much for joining us today.